whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
I'm scared to close my eyes. I'm scared to open them. I'm gonna die out here.
Return, child. I am the eater of worlds and of children. Have you checked the children?
Like, oh my god, it's the 1980s! With the Literary License Podcast retrospective of 80s horror films, with your co-hosts, Joe Radazzo, Vicky Ray, John Wilson, and Keith Shago, keeping everything tubular and rad.
I'm not even gonna swat that fly. I hope they are watching. They'll see. They'll see and they'll know. And they'll say, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
I'm your number one fan.
Hello, welcome to the Literary License Podcast since the 80s, as we celebrate horror films from the 80s and our 2-for-1. And today we're covering Killer Klowns from Outer Space and Bad Taste by Peter Jackson. And before we get started, let's find out who's with us. We got Derek Miller with us. Hello, Chad.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Long time no see.
It has been since Godzilla.
Since Godzilla, yep.
And then you got John Wilson with us. Hello, John.
Hello, folks.
Hey,
Joe Randazzo.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, Joe. And Craig Johnson. Hello, Craig.
Hello, everybody. Hello.
And David Grunt. Hello, David.
Hello.
And Vicky Ray. Hello, Vicky.
Hello, everybody.
And I'm your co-host, Keith Shago. And before we get started, let's find out what we've all been up to. Starting with you, Chad. What have you been up to since last time we spoke to you during Godzilla?
Writing. That is what I've been doing. I've finally, after 15 years of beating myself up in the publishing industry, I'm finally writing full time. So it's really hard. I'll tell you that. To anyone who's never tried it, it's really difficult not basing your writing around a day job, and you have to be very disciplined. And it's taken me months to figure this out because there's too many distractions out there, social media and such. So you just gotta stick to it. So yeah, writing short stories, working on a couple of novels, just making it all happen.
Good deal.
And what about yourself, John? What have you been up to?
I've been working like a madman, lots of hours, but on the side, I've been started to do Bloodborne. So I've taken on the challenge. It's apparently it's the big gamers challenge. If you can master Bloodborne, you were made it. It's a game that you just have to be, as other players have said, you have to be okay with dying a lot, and you die a lot in this game.
It's a trial and error game. I take it.
No, it's just you. It's an RPG game that you're trying to build your character. It's very gothic. It's got this kind of like, Castlevania type of feel to it. But you have to just kind of keep persisting. And the creators are also like, if you call this game bullshit, it's just that you don't accept your own faults in gaming. Like, you have to know when you don't do the right move, you're going to die. Right. And so when you get all pissed off that you die, it's like, well, then learn to do the right move. And so it's challenged me as a gamer to learn how to parlay and how to do, blocking and all these types of things. So I've been trying to start that game. Also been watching Star Trek Discovery, catching up. I haven't watched this whole season yet, so I'm trying to catch up before it starts again, because it's like at its mid-season break. So, and loving that show. Love my Star Trek.
Good to have the nerd in our bottom corner.
Did you call me a nerd bottom? What did you just call me? Excuse me, sir.
Beamable. No, Voyager. I've been watching Voyager. That's great. Love Voyager.
Yeah, Voyager's. I mean, it's fantastic. There's a new a cartoon that has Janeway in it, and it's fun. It's Prodigy. But it's that universe. I'm glad it was dying. Like, and it's kind of sad when you watch a franchise die, and like no one. They made an announcement for the next film, and I'm like, I really don't care. The Chris Pine films to me are just like they've started to just. Suck.
Have you seen any of Lower Decks, the animated?
Yeah, it's so funny. It's so fun.
It's great.
It's fun. The humor and like even Prodigy is more like the serious version of it, but there's some humor, and I love that. The complaint that I think people are giving with Discovery is that it has too much heart, and I disagree. I think I watch every freaking episode and I'm crying. And I look at my best friend, he and I watch it together. I would refuse to watch it by myself because he and I are just the same way. And he's like, what the fuck? Like, not again. We're crying again. Like, what is with this show? And it's just, it's got so much heart in the characters, and you just love the characters and the story. And yeah. It's amazing. So if you guys haven't watched it, or if you want to watch a great series, it's wonderful.
What about yourself, Joe? What have you been up to?
Mostly right now, waiting to hear back from film festivals that I submitted. The last 2 scripts I wrote too. And other than that, not really doing much. I just started Peacemaker because none of my friends would shut the fuck up about it. So I decided.
I haven't started that yet. Do you like it?
I watched the first 3 episodes that James Gunn directed, and I thought it was fine. I'm probably gonna watch the rest of the series over the next week. Because I'm waiting to hear from film festivals, I'm not really going out much because I'm trying to save up money in case I need to travel. So I'm just kind of staying at home and watching a lot of movies lately. Lately, a lot of comedy teams for whatever reason. I just started watching a lot of Three Stooges, Abbott and Costello, Laurel and Hardy, and all that stuff. And
that's just all good, clean fun.
Yeah. It's for whatever. And I started watching a lot of pre-code movies too. It's just been what I've been doing lately. Mainly, it's just staying home in the hopes of saving some money. So if I do have to travel to L.A. or Florida or wherever, I'll have a little bit of money so I can actually do stuff.
Yeah. Now's the time too, especially when it's winter. It's good to hunker down during the.
It's
cold. It's perfect.
We just got like nailed with snow last night in Chicago. My job.
I saw that.
My job called me as I was waiting for my Uber, going, "Hey, you know what? There's an advisory to stay at home. You might as well just not even come in because we're not expecting it to be busy." And
you're like, done.
I heard it was dead. Yeah, so I was like, "All right, cool. I didn't waste the money going in."
And what about yourself, Craig? What have you been up to?
I've been watching. I'm going to watch the new Scream tonight. There's a new Scream movie.
Okay.
I can't wait.
Good, nice.
I've been watching a lot of the classic Doctor Who is on Forces TV, so I've been watching like the 1970s Doctor Who's, which is really
grew up on.
It's really strange to see Doctor Who on the TV for me for the first time, like the classic stuff. So it's quite nice, and. I got promoted at work as well, which was like my first
right.
Nice, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm on annual leave, so I'm just chilling out and tidying up and bits and pieces and that. So.
I noticed that all the old Doctor Who's from the very first episode upwards is on BritBox at the moment over here.
Yeah, they're also
they're
on BritBox as well.
We went to the Time Fracture, Craig took me to the Time Fracture in London, like it was really interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The thing, it's like an interactive thing, and you don't really tell you.
There's 17 different outcomes depending on what journey you take, what corridor you take.
Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. Yeah.
I don't know if I told you, but I got ticked off by Davros.
Yeah.
So it's pretty bad. Apparently didn't say the right phrase, and he said, "Get this imbecile out of here."
Yeah.
So being ticked off by Davros, it's very scary, actually, wasn't it? Some of the characters were great. Really enjoyed it.
And you're still doing your gigging in
the
Old White Lion pub. He's there every Thursday. If anyone's local and wants to see him singing and playing guitar, then pop on down.
It's great.
And what day of the week's that? And where's the White Lion? It's in Islington, isn't it?
Yeah, Thursday, Keith, if you want to come down, if you got some...
Old White Lion, East Finchley High Road, North London.
We had
every
a
Thursday. What time?
Normally starts about 9 o'clock.
9
you know,
o'clock.
yeah. There's an American guy comes down. He plays a lot of blues, does a lot of Robert Johnson. He's really good. You know, he's such a good guitarist. Right. Yeah. And he was doing like some Lead Belly last night. Great, you know, really cool stuff. But the sort of, there's a guy there. He's only about mid-20s. He can play like sort of. I don't know, you know, he's just got this great feel. He's like sort of Mozart, honestly, you know, he can really play well. I'm trying to think of George Zawinul. He can play like him, you know, and also like Billy Joel, you know, he's got that same sort of feel, like, you know, great player, like, you know, to sing and play the piano. It's easy with chords with the guitar because you just concentrate on the chord change. And this hand's basically just keeping the rhythm and playing the chord. But when you're playing piano, you're actually playing bass, tenor, and treble. So it's like almost like a concerto in a sense, you know. And you have to sing over the top. And if it's another harmony over the top, it's like splitting your brain into 3 parts, you know, or 4 parts. It's amazing.
Yeah. Wow.
And what about yourself, Vix? What have you been up to?
Not really a whole lot. Not like yourselves. Y'all seem busy and doing all kinds of fabu kind of things. I've been sticking to watching my 1883. Got 2 more episodes to go. Heard Chad's watching it too, so I'm not the only one. What did I finish? I finally saw Blood Wars. Underworld. I totally forgot to watch that one. I didn't know it was even out there, the 2016 installment. Oh, yeah. And it looked like they were setting us up for another Underworld, which I'd really like if they did, because I really love the whole franchise. And I finished Discovery of Witches. Finally, that was only 3 seasons. That left me totally unhappy because I really wanted more from that, but they gave us 3 seasons. That's all you get. Other than that, I've just been watching a lot of old Hammer films and stuff, looking for the old Vincent Price things lately. I haven't really found anything. This is going to sound awful and people are probably going to send me hate mail. But 2021 movies are just not doing it for me. I just can't. I put it on for 10 minutes. I can tell in 10 minutes whether I can watch it or not, especially the horror genre. The first time I see a cartooned monster walking across, like, nope, can't do it. Can't do it. Can't do it. But Asher watched the other day to go Cowboys and Dinosaurs. It was so bad, but he loved it. You know, because, you know, the dinosaurs, you know, he doesn't know the difference, but but we're waiting for us at what is it? June? I think the last Jurassic Park is coming out.
It looks good. The trailer looks fantastic.
Oh my God. I know. I can't wait. So I'm really psyched for that. So, you know, we're a bunch of Jurassic Park freaks over here too. So, but other than that, you know, soccer season starting, you know, BMX season starting again. So we're fixing for warmer weather and more fun out there and getting back to normal, at least here in Texas. I don't know about the rest of the country, but
Vicky, have you tried Last Night in Soho yet?
Yes.
Watch
totally loved it. I was going to say I watched it again because I loved it that much. That movie is fucking excellent. I don't know if you might not share that. A lot of people didn't like it. I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. Loved it. I might even watch it again. I just thought I always see something in that movie I did not miss. I did not see.
I've only seen one Edgar Wright film I didn't like, and that was I didn't like his Scott Pilgrim film, and that's the only film. But all his other films I really.
Oh my God, I love Scott Pilgrim. I loved it. Oh my God,
yeah, I was disappointed.
You're the only other person in the world besides me that's like, I don't think this is like the great fucking classic everyone thinks it is. I have nothing against it, and it's fine. Yeah. I think it's okay, but everyone regards Scott Pilgrim as like this fantastic, like classic film that's like so well made. Like,
it just kind of reminds me of like a Ferris Bueller for some reason for the modern kid, like for the modern.
Which movie is it?
It's Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Based on a graphic novel series.
I have not seen it.
I think it's his weakest film actually, but everyone seems to love it.
I didn't know he did that.
Yeah, no.
I mean, I've liked Edgar Wright since the Channel 4 TV series called Spaced with Simon Pegg and.
Yes, brilliant.
Yeah.
That is brilliant. Great. That is absolutely brilliant, isn't it? Yeah. It's so funny, you know. It's
they filmed Shaun of the Dead just nearby.
North
Finchley, Keith.
Yeah, you know, I love that movie.
I love Shaun of the Dead. It's one of my favorites.
Crouch End and Archway. I think most of them.
Spaced is filmed around this area as well. So. Yeah. And then so wasn't At the End of the World as well.
That's
right. Y'all like don't just look up.
It was
I haven't seen it yet.
Do you think it was Oscar worthy?
I think I enjoyed Silent Night more than I enjoyed Don't Look Up.
Yeah. They didn't really
So myself, I got all my book reviews out, so that was.
I saw that. I had to retweet like 1,000 of them this morning. God, how do you do all that?
I have to say one book I think that our listeners should probably like a lot. It's a book by Kim Newman called Something More Than Night, which is basically a fiction that's set between the 1930s and 40s Hollywood about a murder mystery, and it joins up Philip Chandler and Boris Karloff solving this murder mystery.
Oh my God, that's cool.
I was going to ask if it's the Kim Newman that does the classic film reviews, and now that you mentioned Boris, I'm like, okay, it's definitely got to be him then.
Yeah, it is him. And it's quite along the same veins as a book that we reviewed. We had the authors on our show a couple of years ago called Stoker Wilde, where they have Brad Stoker and Oscar Wilde joining up together solving supernatural mysteries in the UK and Ireland, which is a really good book series because their new book's out now. Coming out. They just sent me the book to review at the moment, so that's been very good.
Is that the Stoker's Wilde?
Yeah, Stoker Wilde.
They have another one out?
Yeah, it's just well, the review copy's just been sent to me, so I think it's.
Oh my God, I love their first two books. Those were great. What an easy read too. And if you read Dracula, you really understand what's going on too, because it's kind of in the same vein a little bit. The narration, I guess.
Yeah. So, well, my book reading's kind of going to be on the back seat now because I've just signed a 2-year contract with CamCon, and so they just sent me all this Resident Evil.
Nice.
So I got.
Oh my God.
15 things to read about the history of Resident Evil, and we're only.
So you basically got to immerse yourself in the Umbrella Corporation for a while.
Yeah, you will. How about the Umbrella Corporation and the Mythos? So I'll be doing that for the next.
That's amazing. Congrats.
That's fantastic.
Cool. Congratulations. That's
awesome.
great, Keith. Congratulations.
Yeah, that's for the new Resident Evil, not the remake of 4, but a new one that's coming out in 2025.
Nice. That's so cool.
I haven't seen the Resident Evil movie yet. I've heard
you write them and do what they ask you to do, and then 6 years later, it's out. Okay.
Well, it's hard, right? Because games, especially, take much longer, than film. Film they try to churn them out as quickly as they can, but games could take 5 to 8 years just to get it out.
And then the other thing I've been doing is basically we got rid of Bewitched in our regular programming, and then that's going to be a regular feature called Make Remake. And so just programming that all in and getting all the music rights and Amazon on board and getting that all sorted out there. So that's quite interesting because we're going to be doing all kinds of genres in that.
I know, I love the
concept. We're doing Imitation of Life from 1936 and the 1959 one about passing in America, which it's quite a good thing. I've talked to my secretaries about it, so we did a lot of research on that. And I think that'll be out this week. This will go out on Saturday. That will go out on Sunday, and then we'll be back to our regular scheduling after that. So,
when are we starting that?
We're starting it this month, actually.
I got it.
Imitation of Life's the first one. And then we have a new co-host called Simon Templeman who's joining on board for that, and he'll be doing that. But he'll also be popping in for 2-for-1s and book the screens as well. So he'll be popping back and forth, but that'll be the main one he'll be in. So
nice.
So, and Chad, I'll send you our listing for that in case there's anything in there that you want to. I know we're doing King Kong, the Peter Jackson and the original.
Oh yeah, because you just can't get enough of Peter Jackson, man. Especially after this week.
Well, that brings us to our first feature, which is Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which is a 1988 American science fiction comedy horror film written, directed, and produced by the Chodo brothers, and starring Grant Kramer, Suzanne Snyder, John Allen Nelson, and John Vernon. It is the only film to be written and directed by the Chodo brothers, who also created the practical effects and makeup for the film. The film is about a clan of evil extraterrestrials who all resemble clowns. They arrive on Earth and invade a small town in order to capture, kill, and harvest the human inhabitants to use as sustenance. Killer Clowns from Outer Space was filmed in Watsonville, California, and at the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk, which you probably remember from what famous film that we all love, The Lost Boys.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The score uses practical effects, including rubber suits. The film utilizes practical effects, including rubber suits. The score was composed by John Massari. The John Massari soundtrack is available on Spotify and iTunes. And the film received generally positive reviews and has been considered a cult classic. A sequel has been in development hell since the original film's release, with Stephen Chodo having stated that he hopes to produce a series of films with a total of 4 installments or a television series based on the film. The Sci-Fi Channel announced on October 22nd, 2018, that it was in talks to purchase the rights to the film in order to produce a requel. But of course, got caught up in the COVID, and apparently they're still working on the sequel, so we'll see what happens in later years for that. So what we're going to do is cut to the trailer of Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and we'll be right back.
It was a night like any other night. Then something happened.
Did you see that?
Something different.
It's no shooting star.
Why here? Why now? Why clowns? They've been knocking them dead all over the universe.
What are you gonna do? Knock my block off?
Soon they'll be doing it at a theater near you.
Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Pizza?
Maybe they're just cruising through the galaxy and stopped here for a bite to eat.
You don't need a police pal, you need a psychiatrist. They want to play games? They're messing with the wrong guy.
What are you in for?
Killer Clowns from Outer Space. It's crazy.
Hello, welcome back to Laser License Podcast, and we're talking about Killer Clowns from Outer Space from 1988. So, starting with you, Joe, what are your thoughts about Killer Clowns from Outer Space?
Well, it's nice to have something more lighthearted on the podcast this week, because these movies are both just so cheesy, and John Vernon to me is a national fucking treasure. I love him. I love him as this over the top police captain in this movie. I've ended up seeing a lot of him lately because for some reason, I found the first episode of the Animal House TV series, and I watched that. So I've had him kind of on the brain lately anyway. Everything about this movie, it's so much fun, so cool. So I love the idea of these cotton candy pods that are holding people. It's a movie. It's a movie that works because it normally when you try to get horror and comedy together, it doesn't always work out as well as this. I mean, everything here with the shadow puppets and the shadow puppet T-Rex that eats the crowd. It's I'm struggling a little bit. Sorry. But no, it's a fun little movie that I just rewatched it for the first time in like 25 years, and it's like I'm having trouble putting this to words because it's just fun. It's just stuff keeps happening, and it goes by so quickly too. That's the other thing about it. Yeah, if somebody wants to jump in and save me here, I'm like,
I was gonna say I agree. Yeah. Like, I love the element of the film where, like, let's compare, like, for instance, The Fog. You know, The Fog was a town, and it was about a town. You get to see what's kind of happening in the town and how the fog affects the town. Whereas this, it's kind of like you get these little glimpses of, like, just the chaos that these clowns are doing around town. But each time it's something different. So they have the sock puppet scene, and then you have then you have the shadow puppet scene, and then you have the little girl at the restaurant, and the clown is like, "Come here," you know, and like doing that. Like, I love, like, just the elements of that, and it kept it fun, you know, because it could have been always around the three main characters, Mike, Debbie, and Dave, but they kind of let you glimpse different parts of the town, and then you have the comedic duo of the brothers, you know, and their little ice cream truck. Yeah.
Oh, dear God, the brothers.
Funny.
Yeah. They used the ice cream truck to lure girls to the parking spot.
Yeah. And clearly,
I think of this.
Again, I think it's like when the writers are creating it, they're like, what can we create something that has a phallic nature? Oh, ice cream, you know, like here.
And the guys are
on
all
this and, like, you know, licking this. And like, oh, God.
No, boats. Inflatable boats in the back of the car.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It looked quite cozy.
Yeah, it was quite funny like that. But, you know, clowns are always scary anyway. I don't know. You know,
but these are weird. These are like, if you look through the makeup, they look like they could be like alligator aliens.
Ooh,
or
B. Arthur. They kind of look like B. Arthur. Some of them.
It's like you know, the clown. If you know, that was the first start of the scary clown thing. You know,
yeah.
You know, I'm trying to think if there's any sort of maybe going back to way back. What was that movie where the doll comes alive? You know, the ventriloquist doll. I think it might have been.
The black and white one, Dead by Night, Dead of Night.
Yeah. That's right, Keith. That's the one. That was scary. No, I remember that. Really stuck in
Michael Redgrave.
Yeah. Wow. Now we're going back.
My favourite clown is Jumbo, the one with the big mallet behind his back.
Oh God,
he uses Officer Mooney as a glove puppet, and his famous last words were, "You're never going to make a dummy out of me."
Yeah.
It's just
Shorty punching that guy's head off.
I remember seeing this movie a long time ago, and that scene was, out of all of them, the scariest to me, because everything else was kind of fun and like, oh, you kind of just went along with it, but like that was like.
Yeah,
grotesque, and like to have literally someone fist through the person's back and they're using him as a puppet. I was like, oh.
And the two guys are in the prison and they in the jail cell, and they say, "So what are you in here for?"
Yeah, this is so good.
I've actually got the Jumbo limited edition pop vinyl from Killer Klowns. I think it's my guilty pleasure. I've watched this hundreds of times.
This is definitely the kind of film, though. This is the kind of film that you want to get your friends together and just go find a theater that replays old movies and just go see this on a Saturday night. This just so fun. They don't make them like this anymore. Damn it!
I mean, just the effects too. Like, are always slightly different. So you have, like, you know, them with their animatronic and, like, you know, the latex mask and everything, but then the balloon and like doing that and them carrying her out in the balloon, like. They definitely were like thoughtful in the consent of like creating something and saying, what can we do with popcorn and how can we make that? Oh, we can make that into like these creatures, right? And then what can we do with, you know, a balloon that you can like turn into a little like trace, what do you would call like
that was really
that was hysterical. I was like, that is so smart, you know.
And they say, miedo. They got their own language.
And of course you have the premarital sex teenagers all getting it. You know, everybody, you know, they're doing the bad thing, so they're at the make-out point, and they're going to die.
Make-out point, yeah. We never had a make-out point in Newcastle.
I love the pizza scene where Shorty comes out of the pizza and he says pizza, because me and my sister always say that when we're going to order a pizza, we always say pizza from this movie.
I love that she's just like, oh, great, like she didn't even order it. She's like, oh, pizza, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
I was
That
going
dog
to
looked
say,
like a Jeff
between
Koons,
1985 and 1988, 89, we had some really interesting films coming out. You had Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which had like
Oh, that
very
was
off-kilter Parents, which we'll be covering later on, and
Yeah.
the Reanimator series, and Bride of Frankenhooker, and things like this. So we had like, films made with really low budgets, but at the same time with a very decent and fun aesthetic to them.
Yeah.
Which,
It's darker. Yeah.
Even Killer Clowns cost 1.8 million to make.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's crazy.
I wanted one of them guns. It was classic.
The music really did it for me, though. Just I'm a child of the '80s. I love everything '80s, whether it be arcade games, especially music, films. The music was like Starship and Devo had a love child, and I loved it from the moment that it began. It was great.
I'm going to have to go back and listen to it and draw that conclusion somehow.
What was all we had in England was the Smiths, Joy Division, the Police, of course. Sting Light from Newcastle.
I also like the hillbilly at the beginning where it's like, I'm gonna people are gonna come see me. I'm gonna go.
Who was that? I know him.
The dog. I would have done like Pooh Bear. Yeah,
but then he grabs onto the spaceships, the metal thing, and gets proper electrocuted. You think, Jesus, this is not going to end well.
No, not going to end well for me.
I don't know his name.
Go now.
I don't remember his name, but I know that guy has a hell of a filmography. I looked him up, and it's classic stuff.
His name's Royal Dano. You'll probably know him as the love interest in How to Marry a Millionaire.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
He's if you needed an old redneck in any 80s horror movie, that's who
he
you
would
got.
Him and John Vernon were together in The Outlaw Josie Wales, too. They were in that.
Oh, that's right.
And Royal Dano was a really nice looking guy. He comes out of that same canon that what was it? Not Montgomery Cliff, but Rock Hudson and John Gavin. They were all managed by the same people, so there's a little bit of question about their sexuality when you're involved in that manager. Tab Hunter was another one that came out of that same stable. But Royal Dano also did a lot of like Gunsmoke, Little House on the Prairie. He was a regular on that for a while. And, he's been around for years. So he's very he has a very small scene, but it's quite impressive that a film of this independence was able to draw, Royal Dano and John Vernon into.
Yeah,
John Vernon was perfect for the part, though. I mean, he's always plays a good asshole. I mean, the first thing that comes to your mind is Dean Wormer. It's Dean Wormer.
yeah.
Royal Dano at this point was doing a lot of movies like this because he shows up in one of the Ghoulies sequels. He's in. I forget if it was House or House 2. I think.
I think he was.
Was he the cowboy zombie in House 2, or was that somebody else?
I think he was a zombie in House 2.
Yeah, I think that was him. He was popping up in a lot of these
movies. Zombie or something.
So it kind of gave a new lease on life with people like our age, because here's this classic actor who was in all these great westerns and stuff in the 50s and 60s, and now he's kind of found a second life in these movies. It's awesome. And he always stands out.
Critters film as well. I think he did a Critters film as well. Critters 2.
He did do Critters.
One of them.
I think he did both actually.
Was he?
I think he did Ghoulies.
He might have. I can't remember now. I'd have to go back because I can't remember his face.
I just remember that. I remember him in How to Marry a Millionaire because he was the country person who maybe it was after not Marilyn, but the other one that basically she wanted a rich man.
So was it Rita Hayworth? Not Rita Hayworth, but
Marilyn Monroe.
No, Betty. No,
it was Jen Russell and
Lauren McCall, maybe.
Yeah, I don't remember her being after her though. And that's kind
of no, it's the one with the legs, the one with the insured legs.
Oh, Betty Grable.
Yeah, Betty Grable.
Okay,
he ends up with her. Because I just remember it's really because he has very identified eyes. I mean, they're very blue, aren't they?
He was in Ghoulies 2. He was in House 2. He was in Amazing Stories. I actually do remember him in Amazing Stories. Yeah.
Who's he in Amazing Stories?
Elmer Quick, and then Salvation Army Officer. I think.
Vaguely remember. The one that strikes me about that whole series was the airplane that lands on the big yellow.
The costume.
Oh yeah.
Well, the Christopher Lloyd, one where he's a really tough teacher who ends up getting his head cut off or something like that.
Oh yeah. God, he was a scary teacher, and he wasn't dead. I don't think. Was he dead?
No.
I think he gets his head cut off, but somehow he stays alive. I haven't seen it since I was a kid, so.
It's old. I haven't seen that in eons, so I'm glad you brought it up. It gives me something to look for.
I think the episode that always stuck out with me was the one where the guy was playing a mummy in a horror movie they were filming, and his wife was in labor, and he had to get to the hospital before the baby was born.
Yeah.
But they're filming in like a really small town full of like rednecks, and they all think he's a real mummy, so they're trying to kill him.
Oh my God.
He couldn't get the costume off.
That's hysterical.
Yeah, that's one of the only episodes. That and the Mark Hamill episode where Mark Hamill was like a collector his entire life and collected all these old toys. And then when he's he asks somebody for gas money so he can drive into a lake and commit suicide. And she ends up buying like his toy collection for like millions of dollars. It's just,
yeah.
Oh man.
About the Mummy out. Well, last weekend I was watching Shudder and they had this really good documentary about Boris Karloff on there.
Yeah.
And they talked about when he played the mummy, that when they put him into the outfit and they put the makeup on, he couldn't use the bathroom for like 12 hours.
Oh my God. Did they put a diaper on him? Like, what the hell?
They had like any kind of piping or anything they could use. So you basically just had to make sure he didn't drink anything.
Oh, flip it out.
So it's like, God.
It's
So, yeah,
tough
so
to
when he couldn't get the mummy outfit off, I think of that now. So it's like, oh, that's it.
Oh, man.
I got to catch that before it's gone because I keep meaning to watch that documentary and I just keep forgetting.
Me too.
Remember that song, Keith, the Monster Mash came out in the 70s.
That's right.
The guy who was like impersonating Boris Karloff. I was working in the lab late one.
That's a damn good impression right there.
Yeah.
When my eyes beheld an Irish, like he always had like a bit of a list.
Boris Karloff, out of everything that he did, you know what the thing he's the most proudest of?
What's sorry?
Boris Karloff, you know, the one project that he did that he's most proudest of, and he said that this is what if he dies, this is what he wants to be renowned for the rest of his life.
Okay.
Narrating How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's
amazing. He that probably is going to be the one that he's always remembered for, though.
Well, yeah.
As much as I love Frankenstein,
everyone
watches the Grinch every
when
year.
Mr. Grinch, that's him singing.
Yeah.
And the music for that was written by the music teacher from the TV show Fame.
There's an interesting thing I read about Karloff recently, that apparently he returned to England after he was famous, and he apparently thought that because he was in such a lowly profession as an actor, that his family like wouldn't be excited to see him.
Wow.
So it's kind of interesting that he became like world renowned. And then when he got home, all his brothers who he thought were gonna be like, oh, he's the actor, while they were all doing like these serious jobs, they were all like posing for pictures with them, and they were so happy to see him. I don't know if they covered that in the documentary. I just read that in something the other day. I forget what the article was, and it's kind of just sweet to read that kind of thing where somebody just kind of feels down like that, but then when they're around the family, everyone's like, oh my God, no, you are really this great legend. We love you and all that. So, it's kind of interesting.
Well, with Killer Clowns, I have to sit there and say I love the color scheme that they used in it.
Yeah,
definitely.
It was like a circus, kind of, sort of.
Yeah,
even like the set design inside the tent when they went in and the spaceship tent sort of thing. I love the way that it all looked. It had a really definite, great aesthetic. I mean, these guys never directed anything after this or before this, and this is what they come out with. I mean, that's.
Yeah,
I love that it actually, when it comes up out of the ground, it's actually a top, like it's like a spinning top, which I was like, oh, that again, that you think it's just a tent, and then you see that come out. I wonder at the end if what was it, Debbie, Dave, and what's his name ended up together, because that was a weird, like, So you two dated. Then at one point, he's like, you're about to sleep with her, and then at the end, he's hugging him. At the end, I was like,
she kind of was with the very virile blonde dude at the end, right? What was his name?
No, but like he comes out of the car at the end. He gets saved, and both of them are like, "Oh my God, you're alive!" And I'm like, "Uh oh, what's going on here?"
Yeah.
Too much candy floss.
But for people who don't like clowns, it was definitely, and I don't like. Well, I don't really laugh. I don't like clowns. I'm afraid of clowns.
What's the appeal of like clowns? I mean, it's kind of.
I don't do circuses.
Well, John Wayne Gacy probably didn't help clowns very much.
That and those people in Dallas. Remember when the clowns were standing on the corners doing nothing in 2016? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
The random clowns just going wherever, just standing there staring at people. What the fuck was that?
I don't know, but now that it's 2022, I wish they'd bring it back.
I know. I'm bored.
The theater it's like it's an attention getting thing because you look and you can't miss a freaking clown. I mean, especially if they have the big red hair and the the overly puffy outfit.
Well, we grew up with Bozo the clown. There's nothing more traumatizing to a child first thing in the morning with cereal than Bozo.
Well, what about Ronald McDonald?
Ronald, he was creepy too.
The old Ronald McDonald was really creepy.
I still think that it reminds me.
They look like
he sat on his lap. Traumatized now by who's it? Yeah. Ronald Reagan. No, Ronald McDonald.
Ronald Reagan.
one of them.
Terrified of Ronald Reagan.
Was Grimace just like a large avocado or something? What was the Grimace?
I like the
Grimace.
What was he?
A big eggplant? I don't know.
Big I think he's Barney's dad.
Barney's dad.
The only clown I think I've liked is
but the hamburger kind of looked like the child catcher from Ching City Bang Bang. So you had
oh my God.
Oh God, that's scary.
Was like, hi, we come to take your children. Yay.
Children, where is the children? That's the creepiest scene of all time. Wow.
The element of this movie that I did keep thinking of Pennywise, as I was like, what if Pennywise was part of these aliens and was like, screw you all, I'm going off on my own, and I'm going to do my own thing. And he just left the crew, and he's like, I'm going to do my own thing, and like because that element where the nose was vulnerability, and like
think of it. Pennywise the clown was pretty alien, don't you think? He was weird.
Popcorn and acid cream.
Too much
fun. He was supposed to be something from another dimension.
Yeah.
No, this was like
the mask used in this film for the clowns was actually reused as trolls for the film Ernest Scared Stupid.
Oh wow.
Yeah, go off and do his own solo tour.
I've never seen that movie.
Which one?
Ernest Scared Stupid.
I thought as a kid, never watched it again, and I kind of want to revisit it now to see. I remember my younger cousin at the time was terrified of it, and
Which
I was
one,
like,
Joe?
Ernest Scared Stupid.
Oh.
It's funny when you were scared of something when you're a kid and you watch an adult, you're like, why was I so scared of
But
well, the film that used to scare the hell out of me when I was a kid was The Ghost of Mr. Chicken. Now when I watch it, it's like, oh, this is actually a comedy.
You see.
I used to be terrified of the Hulk with Lou Ferrigno. Oh my God. When my brothers would watch it and I just couldn't, it would freak me out. Like that he could transform in his eyes. Like I remember hating that show. I'd be like, I'm going to go over here. And I would go in another room and I would just like, I'm not watching this.
I never understood the Hulk. Everything grew except for his crotch. I just didn't understand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which version of Jekyll and Hyde?
Big muscles, his calves, everything. Between thigh and waist, nothing.
I know. Hold on. I want to. Was the Jolly Green Giant in the corn advert a cousin of the Hulk?
Yeah,
my sister and cousin used to scream.
He was a milkman.
The bit where Michael Jackson turns into a werewolf in Thriller.
Oh yeah, that was just.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It would have been better if you had to turn into a killer clown. You know? Maybe. I don't know.
Does anybody watch Killer Clowns Part 2? Did you guys watch that yet?
There's not one yet.
They're saying there was one on Amazon.
I think they're trying to.
I watched Roseblood.
because we put out we were going to interview the Chodo brothers, and they said they were in pre-production for Klowns 2 when we reached out to them 3 or 4 months ago. So
it would be interesting if they did even a
hopefully
series,
we might
not
do
just a movie. Because like a series would be kind of fun if it like went from town to town, and you can kind of pick up characters.
But there could be like a secondary tent team flies in.
Well, you know, when one ship blows up, because I'm assuming they're gathering food for other clowns, right? So they're going to have to go back. If that ship never came back, it's going to come back for that ship. So, you know,
I'll be so upset if they reboot this and it's a bunch of CGI. I'm going to be so upset.
That would be awful.
Oh, I know. It's hard though, because nowadays it's rare that people will invest in this type of technology, right? And stylistic things. Now it's just green screen. Everything is green screen, and you know, it's sad.
It takes a lot away.
Yeah.
But was the tent a gateway to like a dimension? Was it? It wasn't a spaceship, wasn't it? But I know. But it also
there was that big ball that was like an orb, like the engine room. So
it felt like it
was like the ship.
Bit like sort of Easter Island, sort of like, you know. But I always thought like it was like a gateway, you know. Maybe the other clowns could come through the tent, you know, in a sense, like, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, there were like, it seemed like there were only 5 clowns in the beginning, and then at the end of the movie there was quite possibly 50.
Yeah, they did have a bigger population than we were led to believe.
Yeah.
It was like a TARDIS.
But they were each unique though. Yeah. Even when their numbers grew, they were each unique in how they looked, and just, I applaud that. That was
they
amazing.
did do a good job of that.
I love the clown car too when they come out and they're all coming out of the clown car. That was like,
oh yeah.
Interestingly enough, at Halloween in 2021, Spirit Halloween, the shop has dedicated a section of merchandising for this film, which includes costumes from the film. The sections features items such as clothing, statues, props, doormats, signage, and life-size animatronic characters that you can now buy for your very own homes.
Nice.
I actually was searching for the cotton candy ray gun because Spirit Halloween was
I know, I want that.
They were sold out at every single one I went to.
That was a cool gun, you know. I'm not into guns, but that was a good one.
Yeah.
I want the dancing dog and all. That was great. Like a Jeff Koons, you know, that artist, American artist, you know, he used to do like a giant blow out balloons, classic, you know. Yeah, that's what it reminded of. I want a dog like that, you know. It would be cool to have a dog.
Did the popcorn, the cotton candy thing kill them immediately? Because I did notice one of the clowns was drinking one of them with a straw.
Yeah.
I think it did because
it
was dissolving them inside, wasn't it? So it's like an acidy kind of thing.
Made it kind of juicy.
Yeah. Oh, and I forgot the pies. Remember the pies too? That was a great scene too. When they throw the pies at the security guard and it literally just melts them. They're like, melted ice cream. And like, not just ice cream. And you see the bone sticking out.
How many people can you fit into a small car?
Oh yeah, what's the record? You know, for clowns getting into a car? Is it something like 32? I forget now. You know, there's a record actually, official record.
Back in college days, we used to get quite a few of us into a car into the drive-in.
Well, for Keith, Craig, and I, you know, getting into we have to squeeze on the underground every day, like, you know, and that can be
that before COVID, it's like people like
New York's the same way. Trust me, you're like on this subway, like, you know, armpit in your face. You're like, you know, it's like, we're all contortionists here in New York.
Have you ever seen trains in India where basically they're on there, but they're all hanging off the outside of it as well?
Yeah, like great. I remember once the tube driver said, "Don't worry, there's plenty of room on top." You know,
I like the bit where the guy fell into the ball pit and then the two clowns are there and then their boobs enlarged.
Oh my god, I love that. And I love that they like totally hooked up with those clowns and they're like,
I know, they were so desperate. Oh my god, I forgot about that. That movie was just too funny. I mean, you really have to like that kind of genre.
They gave them their big sticks.
A lot of people, might not be their cup of tea because, you know, the hubster kept coming back. He goes, "What the hell are you watching now?" He goes, "Killer Clowns," and I go, "Yes, it's a classic." It's classic.
I thought it was great. Really, really funny. You know?
I'm looking forward to a second one. I hope it comes out.
Well, I did
though,
notice.
I remember when it came out, going to the cinema to see it. It was only at the cinema for like a week. That was it. It was gone.
What that just that amount of time?
Yeah, it wasn't a huge.
It wasn't doing us. Yeah,
but I remember, but it was a huge VHS smash.
Yeah,
so
HBO. I first saw it on HBO.
That's where I saw. Actually,
this here. I remember seeing it on TV a lot.
I remember this and Earth Girls Are Easy with Gina Davis, and these two movies for some reason were either a double feature or whatever. And I just remember going Jeff Goldblum and
Gina Davis,
Gina Davis,
and that other one,
Jim Carrey,
Jim
Carrey, David Wayans as well. Just like, the cast they got a lot.
It was this one, Earth Girls Are Easy, and that one with the one with Kathy Ireland. Fuck, if I can't remember the name of that. I used to see that one on TV a lot too. Might have Alien from LA. Does that sound right?
Wait.
I remember seeing these.
Stepmother is an alien.
My stepmother.
Oh yeah, My Stepmother's an Alien. Is that the one?
Oh no, but I recently saw that. I didn't know that existed until my roommate bought the Blu-ray. I love that movie. I just saw it like a month ago.
Kim Basinger's in that though, isn't she?
That's and Dan Aykroyd. Yeah.
And Dan Aykroyd falls in love with her, and
I think around this time we had a lot of things coming down from outer space. I mean, we had Critters they were from outer space, and then we had The Last Starfighter at the running time. Flight of the Navigator. Same time.
Invaders from Mars, Strange Invaders, Spaced Invaders.
Spaced Invaders, my God. I haven't heard anyone speak about Spaced Invaders in 30 plus years.
Spaceballs. Was that 80s?
Yeah.
Spaceballs. 80s. I said to say Space Invaders always kind of reminds me, it's kind of that same kind of feeling as Garbage Pail Kids. Remember that movie?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. Or Masters of the Universe, for that matter. Like, that style. Oh,
it was right about the time when the whole big rubber suit thing was really in. That I guess Henson had helped with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so everything at that point was people in rubber suits.
Yeah. Well, it's also that nostalgia seems to work in like 30-year stretches. Like in the 80s, you had a lot of nostalgia for the 50s. In the 90s, you had nostalgia for the 60s. The 2000s, nostalgia for the 70s. The last decade, nostalgia for the 80s. Now we're moving into nostalgia for the 90s. So when you think of the 50s movies, there were a lot of sci-fi movies then, a lot of things coming down from outer space then.
Yeah. I do think you end up having similar themes that come along,
Yes. I think we also got a lot of 50s aesthetics in the movies as well in the 80s as well. If like the way some of the dressing and the way the costuming is and stuff like this. So we got a lot of that going on at the same time. But I was going to say Toby Hopper's Invaders from Mars was a big disappointment of the original. So.
This Island Earth. I remember that.
The Mystery Science Theater version of This Island Earth.
Night of the Comet. What else is there?
I was going to ask Joe, how was Casablanca, Joe? How was the big screen Casablanca experience?
Oh, I loved going to see Casablanca in the theater again, except I had this older couple behind me that wouldn't shut the fuck up.
Oh, my God.
And I'm like,
we don't need a narration. We don't need a narration, please.
I'm trying to enjoy this movie I've never seen on the big screen on the big screen. Shut up. But
get the killer clowns on them.
That's what I should have done. But yeah, there's always like this. There's always like this weird nostalgia that goes back 30 years like that, and like you start to notice it more in the 80s because you had the remake of The Thing that started off the decade. The remake of Invaders from Mars. I think the reason for it is you see things when you're a kid and you start to remember them and you start to be kind of nostalgic for it. 30 years down the line, these people are now the people who are taking over movie studios. So now the stuff that they grew up loving, they're like, hey, why don't we do something like that? And I think that's why you get this like nostalgia bump like every 30 years.
I like
and now
we're getting into television at the moment with the remake of The Wonder Years and the new Prince of Bel-Air He's got a series out now.
It's
It's not a comedy. It's a bit more gritty. A lot of swearing and drug use and stuff in this one. Produced by Will Smith. But I've noticed there's a lot of these 90 TV shows they're starting to.
I call it like reimagining, right? Because you're taking a concept of something and you're just reimagining that idea. And what if you did like? And technically, this movie does the same thing because it is sort of Tale of the Body Snatcher or something to that effect. Like it's got that alien sci-fi War of the Worlds type of thing, but they're like, but with clowns. Like, oh, why don't we do it with clowns? You know, and I think it's an interesting thing that people need to like consider instead of always reimagining something. But like, what if you did this, like, you know, with Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? That'll be interesting because it is darker and grittier. It's not meant to be slapsticky funny because the original wasn't actually kind of supposed to be, because it was the same scenario that he left, you know, being in Watts and moving to, you know, Bel-Air and being in a, you know, a rich affluent neighborhood. And it just became comedy, right? Whereas, you know, you took away all that seriousness, and this is kind of bringing it back. So,
I mean, you are finding, you know, there's nostalgia for the '90s is feeding through. I mean, I saw what you did last summer. The TV series is out now, which is it's quite good.
I haven't watched it because I just didn't know how it would be, and I was even hesitant to see Scream because even though I haven't
seen it yet. Everybody,
I loved it. At first, I walked out of it. I was like, I need to give myself a little bit. I'm not saying anything about it because I just don't want to ruin it for anyone who hasn't seen it. It is worth watching it because it points out a lot of like things about the genre, the culture, and the fans, and all that stuff. It points out a lot of the things that you're like, yeah, that's kind of real. That's kind of true.
People that told me they went and saw it said if you weren't a fan of the other ones, you probably were going to be lost with this one.
Not
Is that
really.
true? I watched all of them. I haven't seen the new one yet.
Not really, because like I think if you just watch it and you're just kind of like you go along for the ride, it's, you know, it's a fun movie, but I like what they did with it, and I like that, you know, unlike, you know, with Halloween and those, it's a revenge. It's a I'm gonna get you. I'll eventually get you. You know, and it's like, you know, last man standing. Whatever it takes, I'm gonna go. You know, it's great, but it's still like, to me, it's overplayed because they did this with now a few movies like this where it's like, I'm going to go after the killer, you know, and it's like, then you're probably going to die with them. And that's sort of how it was meant to be, you know? But yeah, I don't know. I like that they, when conceptualizing this film, they went that route of, we can make this all about aliens and be like really, you know, bug-eyed green aliens, or we can make it about clowns, and that would make it a humorous, but also that humor is also like, oh, why are people
a circus tent for a spaceship?
Well, and it's also like, why are people okay with this? Because every time the clowns came into town, they would get these big smiles and be like, "Oh, look at how I would."
But they had ugly
away
teeth.
from me, like creepy. What the fuck, you know? Everyone's like, "Ooh, they're going to perform," and they're.
I wish they had a Terrifier clown in there, though. He's like my favorite clown.
The Terrifier clown? Which one?
Yeah, I love him. You know what I'm talking
you
about?
haven't seen Terrifier?
Oh wait! Oh yeah! Oh yes, I have. Yes, that one. Woo.
Yeah, the clown with the little hat on and the whole white face, and he would split the girl in half, kind of thing. Yeah.
That's Catherine Corcoran. She's a fucking sweetheart. I absolutely love her. She was in a bunch of trauma movies, and then she made that, and she blew up after that.
I loved her.
She's awesome. She was the reason I watched it, because and I actually really enjoyed it because it is just really, really, really dark. But one thing about this movie that like Terrifier didn't have, the kills were all circus and clown related. Like Terrifier, he's just hacking somebody with a hacksaw.
Yeah.
But in this, all the kills, everything that happens, all relate in some way to the circus or to clowns or something like that. And that makes it a little bit more fun. It carries the it kind of carries the gimmick a little better.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, sometimes, at the end of the day, when you're making this kind of movie, I guess you could always get lazy and go, cut somebody's throat. But this stuck with it the whole way through.
Well, and you wanted to know what they're actually doing, because, like, certain scenes you knew the person they had it coming, because they're just stupid enough to trust, like, these clowns, because you're waiting for, like, what is going to happen? Like, with the puppet scene, when he's doing the whole puppets and all of a sudden it's a gun. I just laughed, and the person's still like, "Oh crap!" oh God, wait, and then he gets taken out, but they could have replicated that, right? So it was always the guns, and they chose not to, and they did different things, and it kept it fun and lively to me throughout the film, because then you just didn't get bored. You're like, oh, they're just not going around like zapping people.
I have to sit there and say that the people playing the clowns, that must have been the most uncomfortable mask to wear. I mean, it's latex.
Oh God, yeah.
And latex smells after a while.
And then movement too, right? Because that's the other thing, is they're all having to like kind of lurk. They're not like moving fast, so that movement like had to be just exhausting to kind of no, you're going too fast. And they're like lurking.
Looks heavy.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how many killer clowns we rate this on a scale from 1 to 5. Starting with you, Craig. How many clowns do you rate this?
I'll give it 20 stars out of 5.
This movie breaks the scale.
Yeah.
All right, so David, how many do you rate it?
Well, I'll give it 4 pies in the face out of 5.
Nice.
I'm going to eat the other one.
With a cherry on the top.
Yeah, with a cherry on the top. Yeah.
And yourself, Vicky?
I'd give it 4.5. I love it. I thought it's fun. It was entertaining, and it's an energetic kind of scary movie, because it's always
Yes.
And what about yourself, John?
I'm going to give it a 4.5 as well. I just think it's like, if I can rewatch a movie and find the joy and the nostalgia of watching it, then it definitely is like something that I'll definitely watch it again. And yeah, highly recommend.
And yourself, Chad?
This is definitely 4 30-something-year-old teenagers out of 5. Definitely. everybody in this film portraying a teenager was definitely in their 30s.
That always cracks me up.
Like watching Grease all over again.
Ralph Macchio.
Yes.
Though there was a meme. There was a meme that went out, and it was like, why does every kid in the classroom looks like they're their mom and dad? Because like it goes around the classroom, and all the girls have the big hair, and they're like the outfits, and the guys, same thing, all this like hair and everything. And so it's like the running joke is everyone in the 80s was actually 30 something. They're not 20.
And what about yourself, Joe? How many do you rate it?
4.5 too, because it's for what it is and for what they were working with, it's phenomenal. You could tell they didn't have a lot of money. You could tell that it was a passion project. And I like to rate things on a scale. And for what they had versus what came out, it's a 4.5 easy. It's a lot of fun for a movie that's made with so little money.
Myself, I'm going to give it 4.5 as well. I bought the video, I bought the DVD, I now have the Blu-ray. I got to sit there and say it's really worth buying the DVD or the Blu-ray, because there's some fantastic documentaries about this on there.
The extras, yeah.
The one I picked up a couple weeks ago is only like $5 too, so it's pretty cheap to pick up now.
Yeah. And, I know there's talk about a sequel, and in the kind of way I hope they don't make one, because I got a feeling it probably won't take.
Yeah.
We're living in a different time now, and different
This is
ways of
true.
looking at things, and
It'll offend the fuck out of everybody, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I don't know. The thing is, like, there's an innocence about this that there might not be with a sequel, because society now is a little bit more jaded as far as what you find in horror films now. We're a bit more jaded, a bit more pitched on as far as your characters are inside horror films, and and it'd be. If they do make one, I will watch it, because they have to sit there and say that I would never have thought that Chucky lasted long, and the Chucky TV series is brilliant. I love that. So
I love the Chucky
It's
series.
got a whole new audience now.
Yeah.
So there might still be, so they still might be able to keep the aesthetics, because Chucky's keeping his aesthetics, but adding to it and keeping the mythos going. So I guess we'll just have to see what kind of who's pumping money into it, and how much control they have, and how much they lead to the original team how much control they have. So
yeah,
but no,
it'd
I
be
get
kind of
that.
interesting if they put humans in between two different alien races. So aliens of clowns or like, you know what I mean? Like have it be like a 3-ring circus, you know, so you're literally like, they come to this town to, you know, take humans and consume them, but then other aliens are infringing on that. And like whatever those aliens are, or whatever those clowns are like the half cousins of them or whatever, you know, and make it a 3-ring circus. That'd be kind of cool.
And I like aliens that come down to Earth and feed on people. I think that's quite a good thing to do.
I know. It's like their Big Macs.
As far as follow-ups, while logging this on Letterboxd, I put in Killer and then KL and Killer Cleavage from Outer Space. My Joanna Angel.
Oh, there you all go. You guys all watch it. Get back to me.
I went and watched the trailer. I'm disappointed. There's no clowns. There's no clowns in the trailer.
Cleavage from outer space.
Like the balloons and the one.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to get into this with no clowns.
You know you're a classic film when they make a porn version of you.
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
Yeah. I wonder what the porn version of it is, Tit.
Well, this brings us to Bad Taste, which is a 1987 New Zealand science fiction comedy horror film directed, produced, and photographed by Peter Jackson, who also stars and co-wrote the screenplay along with Tony Hiles and Ken Hammon. Independently produced on a low budget, it is Jackson's first feature film. Jackson and friends take on most of the key roles, both on and off screen. The plotline sees aliens invade the fictional New Zealand village of Kaihoro to harvest humans for the intergalactic fast food franchise, where they face off against a 4-man paramilitary force. The film provided Jackson with the leverage necessary to advance in the film industry, which will lead to 2 more horror films, and then Heavenly Creatures afterwards. And since its release, Bad Taste has become a cult film and has generally received positive reviews. The film was made for $25,000.
It took 4 years. Did it take 4 years
and
to
we'll be
do?
right back with Bad Taste.
We've got trouble.
Good word. Right, we're on our way.
Tomorrow we're having you for lunch.
What are we going to do if we're spotted, Frank?
Go, Frank!
Jeez, the real ticket.
Siri was right all along.
Look down. That's the end of the weekend, cowboys.
What's up, Oz? You go on. I'm gonna go back and stop those
Wankers.
God's sake, Oz, put that thing down. Let's get in there and hit the leader.
Get the launcher!
Hello, welcome back to Literature License Podcast, and we're discussing Bad Taste from 1987, the New Zealand Peter Jackson first feature. Starting with you, Chad, what are your thoughts about Bad Taste?
This is an indie author's wet dream is what this is. Because I know I put out things and some people are like, oh my God, this is absolute shit. I hate this. That's fine, because Peter Jackson released a movie in 1987 called Bad Taste, and 10 years later, he was winning the Oscar for Lord of the fucking Rings. This movie is my mantra, just like the line that he says, I'm a Derek, and Dereks don't run.
Yeah. Well, that's almost exactly what I was going to say.
I saw Bad Taste at the cinema when it opened, and when I came to England, it was one of the first DVDs, not the first videos I bought when I came over here in 1988. And I think it's a really fun film. I mean, it's very New Zealand. It's a very New Zealand,
New Zealand.
But it also gives me that Evil Dead vibe, where basically a bunch of friends got together and said, "Let's make a movie," and they did. And
it looked like Def Leppard versus the Aliens.
Yes.
Yeah, and especially like when you go through, when you look at the end credits and you realize that everyone that's acting in it is doing the camera work on it. They're doing the special effects on it.
Yeah.
It's like basically this group, and these same people are the same people that work together in Frighteners and Heavenly Creatures and Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and King Kong, and this whole team are still together to this day. Which my hat's off to, and it's quite interesting with Bad Taste to be able to give you that individual, low budget, and and let's face it, I mean, it's not Australia, it's New Zealand. So they're able to get a film to get off the shores of New Zealand to hit around the world is something quite phenomenal. And Peter Jackson was not a name at all. And this film got off this film that wasn't released because of Lord of the Rings. It was filmed way before, and my hat's off.
Did he do?
It wasn't part of the Australian boom that we were coming through. It wasn't part of the Mad Max frame. This is a New Zealand film, and it got out into the world. And my hat's off to it for that alone, sort of thing.
I think the special effects were way better than what we saw in the Hobbit trilogy.
You mean all that chicken falling out of the back of his head?
Oh, they did a lot of hiking along the.
Yeah, what was that chicken? That looked like chicken parts. It had to be. It was great looking.
I just laughed that he just kind of like shoves it back in, and he's like, "I'm good."
He's wrapping his head up.
It's so part of it I love is just the humor in it, and like just the fact that he's like, "I'm gonna keep going." He just it's like a little Energizer bunny. He just kept going.
Up the pieces of the other brain and sticks it in his head.
Yeah, I mean, so funny.
And like John was talking about earlier, they made it on so little money.
Yeah,
it took 4 years to do though. I think it took a long time.
Through a lot of ketchup, I think.
A lot of ketchup, yeah, a lot of Kool-Aid and ketchup.
It's
funny
they
were doing it every chance they got.
The part that got me. Okay, I was eating dinner when I was watching this, guys. Okay.
Oh gosh.
And I watch a lot of horror during meal times, and it doesn't bother me. But the scene where they're passing the big bowl around and eating it.
That was a problem for me too. I had to say that was a problem because the guy threw up in it. I don't even know what the hell that was all about, but that grossed me out too. And it takes a lot to like make me cringe. But just something like that, the guy throwing up and everybody drinking it made me cringe.
And I love how his friend's like, "Did you just drink chub?" So good.
What was that supposed to be? Gruel? He said it was, or he said chub. I mean, you throw up, but like, yeah, gruel. The part that I also liked is when Derek falls, and you're like, "Oh, he's dead." And then when he leans or he lifts himself up, it's like the dead pelican. Is it a pelican? And it's like you can clearly see it's a fake pelican. And you're just like, "Oh my god, it was so good." I was laughing so hard with the little. It's all crushed.
I like the premise for the story about harvest. Sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I like the premise for the story about humans being harvested. I thought it was really clever. And there's a Torchwood episode. I think it's called The Countryside, as in like it's spelt like homicide, where there's like a family of aliens living in a cottage in the middle of the wilderness, and they're basically humans and eating their bodies and stuff. So I think that might be a nod to Bad Taste.
Yeah,
might be.
Next time you watch that program from Torchwood, look who wrote one of the screenwriters on it. You'll be interested in that.
What I like Chad said, that, you know, the trajectory of Peter Jackson's career after this. Yeah, you wouldn't know it watching this, but I'm like, there's a scene where they come around the corner and there's Peter Jackson eating out of somebody's fucking open skull.
Yeah,
and I sat there, and my exact words were, "Best Picture, Director, and Screenplay winner, Peter Jackson." Fucking triple threat. He won the big three, and there he is eating goop out of a skull.
It's hard to think that he had an epiphany. I was talking to you guys about it. He had an epiphany to come up with Lord of the Rings. You see him do Bad Taste, and then you see Lord of the Rings. Like, wow. Yeah. Seriously, wow.
If you want to see Peter Jackson's early career, you should also see Meet the Feebles at some point in your life.
Yeah.
What is it?
Meet the Feebles. It's what happens when the Muppet Show goes X-rated.
It's so wrong.
Oh my gosh. I definitely have to watch that.
And my favorite film of his is still to this day Heavenly Creatures, which I think is just a fucking brilliant, phenomenal movie.
I love Brain Dead.
Brain Dead's great too, or Dead Alive in the US.
Yeah, Dead Alive in the States. Yeah, it's great.
And the Frighteners, I really love the Frighteners as well.
Frighteners is fantastic.
I was watching an interview with Peter Jackson. He said that Lord of the Rings and made his career, but it also ruined his creativity. Because he says that now the films, he said his favorite films he loved doing was Bad Taste, Frighteners, Brain Dead or Dead or Alive, and films like that. And he says he's not even allowed. He's like, but he can't. They won't even give him money to make those kind of films anymore.
Yeah, because I think they just take things too seriously, and I think for here that you could tell, like, you know, it is a passion project for this guy, and then that he had his friends, and you could tell by the way everything was produced and how they were just having fun producing this film. And when you get into studio, everything has to be a certain way and a certain direction, it takes the fun out of it all, you know.
And it's got to be something that makes $1 billion on the first weekend, or we're going to consider it a failure.
Yeah, well, a lot of movies we all know did not make $1 billion in the first weekend, and they weren't considered failures. So it's just a matter of
or it has to create a cinematic universe,
right?
You know,
that's a big issue I'm having with everything now, because even about a year or two ago, when I was pitching something that I had written. One of the questions that I was asked was, is there a way we can connect this to an existing IP? And I went, no, I fucking came up with it. I don't want to connect it to an existing
they want
IP.
things to be franchisable, right? So you don't just want a movie. You want it to be a movie, a book, a series, it's like, you know, and it's lucrative that way, but
like DC
sometimes
and Marvel, no one knows better than them. You know,
sometimes you don't want things to be franchisable because it's one story, you know, and it should be enough. Like he said, you know, Killer Klowns. That it is kind of scary to say, don't make another one because this is good on its own. When you keep going, you keep messing and tweaking things. It can make it worse.
It's nice when you find like a diamond
involved.
Yeah, and it's a classic.
And then it becomes like a cult in its own sort of thing, and it sort of launches itself, and that's the beauty of films like this, I think.
Because they say it all in that first one, and it doesn't really need to be repeated, in a sense, like, so, and it's just drawing it out.
Another good thing about Bad Taste is, if you notice, there's a lot of little things that you can tell what Peter Jackson loves. For instance, he gives a nod to Tom Savini. That's where he comes up with all the special effects and how to do that. This is the beginning of it, and you'll see it in all his New Zealand films, which is the Morris Minor. He makes sure there was a Morris Minor in every single one of his films, which gives a nod to Evil Dead, where they made sure that the car, that Sam Raimi made sure that car was in every single film that he did.
Right.
You also know that he's a fan of Doctor Who, because at one point he sits there and goes, maybe the aliens came down in a blue telephone box. There's always,
right. That line was in
there.
there.
And he's obviously a big fan of squirting too, because there was a lot of squirting in this movie.
Oh yeah,
Lots of blood.
when he
red
gets
blood, very red blood.
Stabs him, and like squirts it right in the eye. That part of me is like, oh my god, is it going to turn? That I was like, oh, it's not like a zombie thing. It's like literally an alien thing. But I thought, here he goes again, squirt.
Yeah, let that go viral. Indie author claims director Peter Jackson is fond of squirting. Yeah, let's.
And
I'll take that.
Say, think of bad taste. Have the movie in your mind, and guess where it premiered at? The 1987 Cannes Film Festival.
I saw that, and I was like, wow. I saw that, and I was like, bravo for them to get it to Cannes. I mean, geez, it's crazy.
You know that
to have
Peter
it
Jackson.
premiere there, an unknown student. I mean, it's a student film, really.
Right.
Yeah. You're spending 4 years doing it on weekends because you're working working your Monday through Friday job, and you're doing this on weekends. And basically, he's like, okay, we're gonna have a premiere at Cannes. I mean, that must have been like.
It would be amazing if
he produced it himself. So that means that was because it wasn't attached to a film company or anything like this. Wingnut Films is Peter Jackson's his film company. They weren't doing other films for other people or anything like this. So basically, this is his own money, and this is him and his friends pushing it in that direction. So this is a labor of love between friends being able to get this out there and do that.
I would love to see him and Edgar Wright do a movie together, because that would just be brilliant, because it kind of would allow him to have that, right? Because I wonder if he does have that jealousy that Edgar Wright is kind of doing that, like he's making these films that are like just like fun, and but it feels like you're with your friends watching this film, but like it feels like the actors and just everyone who works in it, you're like, I would love to be on that set to see how that was created.
Kevin Smith is still doing it too, though, with the low budget horror like Tusk, and I know he has another one that's coming out. It should be out already, and then it got delayed.
That movie disturbed me greatly.
Yeah. There's a movie he has coming out called it's called Kilroy Was Here.
Really?
Is a new Kevin Smith horror movie that's
the music can be done by Styx.
It would be awesome if it was, but it's it should be out already. I'm not sure what the delay is, but that's an upcoming Kevin Smith horror movie.
When I was living in LA, they showed Tusk at the Cinerama Dome, and Kevin Smith was actually there in the audience, and he comes on stage afterwards, and I remember his first words after that were, honestly, whatever you think about this movie, you're right. If you think it's the greatest movie ever made, you're right. I love this movie. If you think it's the dumbest thing you've ever seen, you're right. It's the dumbest movie I've ever made. And I remember just going, it
was disturbing for some reason. I don't know why it disturbed me. I found it unsettling.
You don't know why it was disturbing?
Well, we've seen some really rank shit, John.
Like, no spoilers aside, but it's like one of those where you're like, what the hell? At the end of it, you're like, oh my God.
It's just
so
twisted.
We've
watched some ranker stuff we've discussed on here before, but that one kind of...
You know why? It is because they weren't dead. Like it
maybe
torture leads to that, but like that's worse than death. That is worse.
I would want somebody to kill me if that was me at the end of that movie. Please,
I'm sure he did too.
God, that was terrible. Did you know that Peter Jackson baked all of the mass in his mother's oven for this movie?
I did not know that.
Yeah. Cool. And they had a combination of blank firing arms and homemade weapon props that were made of like recycled aluminum and wood. And they had to shake them to stimulate recoil. So I guess they're going boop,
to go like that, to make it look like it fires. Yeah. There was a lot of that going on too in this.
And they were shooting a lot of shit. So I mean, I thought it was kind of really over the top how they were shooting those Tommy guns. But
it was very Rambo, and I never would have expected
Rambo.
Very
Rambo.
I never would expect it from Derek, because Derek felt like very much like I was watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and he was Giles, like the nerd, the quiet nerdy one who was like doing the research. When he pulled out that bag, which was apparently like the magic bag, because he's pulling everything out of that bag, and he pulls out his lunch, and then he pulls out the gun. Oh my God, that was so good.
It seems to have a lot of Zucker Brothers style comedy in it too. Actually, now that you mention that, So yeah, that's another one that Peter Jackson seems to have had some reverence for.
I also think that it has a lot of schoolboy humor all the way through it.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, even when you get to the name of what agency they're working for, I mean, you catch what it means.
Well, I mean,
yeah, the Astro Investigation Defense System, or AIDS. We work for
I
AIDS.
thought that was a little odd.
It's 25-year-olds making a movie, you know.
I know.
They're going to get that kind of
that's another thing I like about fun about it, because it has that 25 frat boy feel about it.
Yeah.
We were all young once and obnoxious. Some of us are still obnoxious, but
well, and just that go into the charge are all like just kind of chilling and hanging out, and then the moment action happens, they're like, let's hop in the car, you know, and then they're like going to get to there. It's like go Midwest, and that happens all the time. Kids are just hanging out like, what, let's get into trouble. Okay, let's do it.
And actually, I saw a movie recently. It was an independently produced movie out of Ohio. I was judging for the Twisted Dreams Film Festival in Milwaukee, and a movie came across called Bong of the Living Dead. And
what was it?
Bong of the Living Dead. Bong, like as in, you know, smoking pot.
As
like
in right? Bong.
Yes. Now thinking about it, it did kind of remind me a little bit of Bad Taste. It kind of had that kind of atmosphere of just these were a bunch of friends getting together, having fun, making a movie, and their sense of humor just carries over. That's actually I just thought of it now because the Blu-ray is coming out in a couple of weeks, and I'm actually going to pick it up. It's the only movie that I think I saw at that festival that impressed me that much. I actually voted for it to win. I don't remember if it did or not. But that's one. If you guys like Bad Taste, check out Bong of the Living Dead.
Never heard of that one.
The Blu-ray's coming out in like a month. It only played at film festivals, so it didn't. It's getting a release now. Finally,
I had a table a couple of years ago at Texas Frightmare Weekend when I was selling books, and the guy who did Velocipaster had a table right across from me.
Oh my god, that movie!
Velocipaster.
That guy was just pure freaking fun, just watching him interact with people throughout the weekend, man. And that's a very similar movie to this, and just it never. You can tell it's not taking itself seriously, and it's just made for pure entertainment.
And that movie ended up changing the game for while that released.
Australian and New Zealand horror films, because they're so off kilter. They're so off kilter. All their stuff over there is just slightly off. That makes it interesting. You know, whether it's the film about the killer sheep.
Oh yeah,
Black Sheep.
Black Sheep, or what about the one about the killer tire?
Oh, Rubber.
What was that? Rubber. Oh my god, that movie! I was like, I started watching, and everybody goes, "Well, what the hell? You might as well watch it. It looks okay." But it was kind of legit. Killer Rubber Tire.
I can't. I want to watch Wormwood because I realized I just haven't seen
I
the
love
new one.
Wormwood.
I know I haven't seen the new because I was like, oh my god, you just reminded me. I'm like that movie. Yeah.
But even if you look at like Road Games with Jamie Lee Curtis, I mean that is a film that has Mad Max. They all have this kind of. It's like I mean, they're speaking English. You're kind of listening to them talk. You're kind of watching how they're putting their movies together and their scripts and stuff like that. But it's just everything's just so off. You know, it's not an English film. It's not an American film. It's like this kind of weird thing in between. And the humor is very different as well. But I quite like it because there's a darkness through everything that they do. Even if you're watching their comedies, whether it's Strictly Ballroom or Muriel's Wedding or Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, or their TV series, or even the way that they look at things. And that's what I quite like about Australia and New Zealand stuff coming out there. I mean, Dead or Alive or Brain Dead. I mean, the humor in that is just so different. And so interesting. Even Frighteners has that same thread all the way through it. That's just something to even the humor and everything's just different. And that's what I quite like about. And that's what I quite like about Bad Taste, because the thing is, like, you're watching it and it's like, you know, you got the gore and everything like that, but then you see the way that they're interacting with each other and just some of the stuff that they're saying, you're like, And then you think, did he just say that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's
now,
one thing.
Interestingly enough, Derek, one of the reasons why the character's name is Derek, and Derek in New Zealander terms is someone who is, if someone's a Derek, that means they're a doofus or a nerd or a geek or someone.
Name earned.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but that is actually a New Zealand slag. Is there's such a Derek.
Well, the whole Derek saves the world at the end, right? He
I was going to say,
goes up in the house.
Intergalactic superhero could be the sequel.
He has been reborn after all.
Yeah, exactly.
The last line in the whole film.
That's one thing about the early Peter Jackson movies versus this stuff more recently is it had a lot more personality.
Yeah,
that's something that I feel like his movies started missing. Maybe after Lord of the Rings, because there's probably a lot more studio interference now.
Well, it's also that creative freedom you don't have. Like when you're making your own film, you kind of really get to say whatever the hell you want to, right? Like if you're the director, producer, writer, actor, you could be like, should we do this? Yeah, let's do it. Like versus like studio. Can you imagine like creating a whole scene and them just being like, yeah, no, we'd take that out. And you're like, I really want that in. And they're like, no, I'm good. We don't want that. Right. Or no, do it this way. And you're like, okay, you're paying me. Sure. Why not?
You can only get away with that if you're like Quentin Tarantino or Martin Scorsese or someone on that level.
Yeah.
Because they can be like, no, fuck you. I'll take this somewhere else and they'll put it out.
I also think he's lost a bit of his spark. And I think that came when he did The Hobbit. I don't think he wanted to do The Hobbit.
Yeah.
I think he felt he had obligated that he had to because he did Lord of the Rings and because that was, you can tell that Lord of the Rings was his great big his love.
Epic.
Like King Kong.
Yeah.
You watch King Kong, which
He's
is
a
covering
huge Doctor Who
in our
fan.
remake in August.
Does he have anything to do with the new series that's coming on Amazon? Like
it's produced by Weta, and they're doing some effects and stuff like that.
I was just wondering because I saw that during Super Bowl, the ad for the new Lord of the Rings stuff that happened pre-Hobbit.
Even before The Hobbit, I feel like The Lovely Bones, he kind of started slipping a little bit.
I loved that movie. I thought that was disturbing too.
Yeah, that was like a heartbreaking film for me.
That was a very hard one to watch.
Reviewing that.
Yeah.
There's a new movie that's
doing an adaptation as well. Doing an adaptation from a best-selling book as well, sort of thing. And I also think there's a lot of I think he had problems because there was a lot of interference from the studio on Lovely Bones, he was saying.
That's probably why, because that was the first film in his run. Like it's kind of missing his personality.
There's a new film that's coming out that's very Lovely Bones, and now I can't remember the name of it, but it's similar to the style of that film.
Right.
I mean, at the moment, you can tell when at the moment, if you got Disney Plus, he's the one that's done that whole the Beatles documentary that's about 18 hours long.
I have not caught that, and I'd completely forgotten about it until I noticed that they had the Beatles all in the front seat of that car.
Right. Yes. That's what it reminded me of too. Oh my God. That was so funny. It looked like they were sitting in the front seat. I've got to get something like that for my car. I just love that stuff. It's so fun.
But I mean, he hasn't made a film since 2014.
God.
Has it been that long?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess if we don't count the documentary on the Beatles, then yeah. I mean,
I would say when he was doing the Lord of the Rings, I mean, that was a huge chunk of his life right there. Those films were back to back to back. I mean, that's a lot to do. Imagine it's like you want to do one film and they're like, no, we want you to do all three of the films together.
No, actually, that was his decision there. That he wanted to do Lord of the Rings, and he goes, "Oh, we'll let you do one." He goes, "No, I want total 100% control of doing all three films my way with no interference whatsoever." And that's why it was all done in New Zealand that way, because New Zealand's hell to get to. I mean, from America, it's a 12-hour journey. From the UK, it's a 24-hour journey.
But that's why it looks so epic, by the way.
But it's so beautiful.
As opposed to doing everything CGI. Can you imagine how, I mean, we'll see how this series is because I don't know how it was filmed, but if he did everything CGI, it would have been a shit of a movie. It just would have. It would have taken away from the majesticness of the film, the epicness of the film. Like, imagine it's like every scene you'd be like, this is clearly a studio.
Scenery.
I know.
I mean, you can see it when you watch, what was it, Xena Warrior Princess? I think they did that in New Zealand too. What a beautiful
Hercules
country.
and that Xena, they did both.
Such a beautiful country.
Well, I mean,
I want to go.
You do see some of the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit in Brain Dead.
Definitely.
The cliff top that he's hanging off to was used. He films everything around Wellington, New Zealand as well. So, which gives it a nice aesthetic and stuff like this.
This movie is. I mean, people can say what they want about it and people will. They always do.
Yeah.
This movie is it's an influence on me. Seeing where he came from to what he became.
It's inspirational.
It is, and I've got a brand new camera set up and green screens, and I've got an entire movie studio in a closet right now because I can't pick myself up to begin. I've always wanted to do a film, but I don't know what I want to do. And when I watched this the other night, I was like, my God, I should just get up off my ass and do it.
Yeah.
So,
even do that short, right? Do something that is small, start out that way, and do, you know what I mean? Like,
those shorts can be painful too.
Yeah, but it's also like, to me, it's like those passion projects. I see so many people doing things that you're like, there's a guy and this one woman, they do these like really short 5 to 10 minute horror. They're so good. I mean, they're so good. And I'm like, that's a fan who was just like, you know what? I thought of this idea. Let's just do it. And I'm sure they have their friends like, we're going to shoot it here. We're going to do it here. And it's like,
they got one on, was it Amazon or Net? It's called 2 Minute Horror Stories or something like that. 2 minute scary. Is that what you're talking about?
No, it just was it was something that I'm on YouTube all the time. And there's influencers that I watch and they bring up some of these. This just happened to be one. I mean, I'm sure you saw it. It's like the one where the woman goes to go to bed and she turns her light off and you see a silhouette.
Yes.
And then she turns it back on. And like, so they did 5 of them. And one was like, people moving into their new home, and every time they put something in the closet was duplicating things. So the wife had the idea of shoving the husband in there, and then all of a sudden the husband was duplicated. And I mean, it was so good.
God, I don't know what to do with one of them, let alone 2 of them.
But they're like small little things. Like there's small little stories.
Take things away. I wouldn't mind a closet to do that.
Yeah, disappear.
Well, that one was trippy because she goes into the closet and then she comes out and then she sees herself. But then imagine you seeing yourself and you're like, well, who's the real one? So it's a little bit of a like standoff, like, oh, I'm killing you. No, I'm killing you because I'm the real, like I'm the real one, and
like Triangle. Oh,
Yeah.
No. Oh, Family Guy with Stewie.
What did he do this film? He did this film in 1987, and then 2001 he come out with Lord of the Rings. I don't think The Hobbit was first, right?
No, Hobbit was after.
It was after, yeah.
But that's just amazing, though. I mean, it really. I mean, that's what I was telling Joe and Keith. I go, God, he must have had a massive epiphany someday. It's like, I'm just going to do Lord of the Rings. I'm going to do this sweeping saga.
Always wanted to do it.
Well, you can see this is in a way
a love for it. You could tell.
This is a kind of epic saga for him. Like this movie was like, it was fast paced, moving, going, and it was an adventure, right? So he created that adventure out of his head.
It was nothing but human suffering and just the perseverance. And I mean, you're tired after you watched it the first time, weren't you? It's like, God, they still haven't made it to friggin' Mordor. I've got another movie.
Or it's just a war after war after war. It's like, how are any of them alive still?
Oh God, I love them though. I'll turn them on no matter what. I just love them. They're like my favorite, some of my favorite films.
The thing about Peter Jackson though, you can, if you watch his films in succession, you can see how he's tweaking. Like you watch this, then you watch Meet the Feebles. There's a tweak there that happens in Meet the Feebles. And that's, he's using puppets and stuff like this. But the script is a lot more together with that. And then he tweaks it again, and then we get Dead or Alive or Brain Dead. It's basically we get like a different aesthetic, which we get a cleaner look, a cleaner motion picture look with that.
So we're not going to ever get any horror genre from him again. Is that what y'all think? Or
well, he says it's impossible for him to get funding to do horror unless he funds it himself. At the moment, he seems to be stuck in his documentary world. At the moment, with the World War II one, they just won one
right
on that one, and the Beatles one's probably going to win quite a few as well. But then we get like Heavenly Creatures, where basically it's like, okay, well, I got the aesthetics right. Now I need to do a human interest story. And then again, but then he does something a bit weird with it. I mean, when he mixes in the fantasy that's going on with the Mario opera singer. Mario Lanza, and he mixes that.
Lanza.
And I have to sit there and say, Heavenly Creatures is probably one of those movies where both actresses are fully working to this day, sort of thing. Kate Winslet's first movie, and what's her name from Yellow Jackets? Melanie Linsky, sort of thing. And the only time I've ever seen that happen probably was Muriel's Wedding, where you got Toni Collette and Rachel, what's her name from Brothers and Sisters? Rachel Griffith. So those two leads actually started taking over the world.
And it has one of the most disturbing and heart-wrenching murder scenes I've ever seen in it.
Yeah.
Heavenly Creatures. Yeah.
Heavenly Creatures does, yeah.
Heavenly Creatures remind me of Virgin Suicides for some reason. Just that nothing's going to come out good from this, like at all, and you just know it's just got this. You get a perpetual sinking feeling. That's what I got from that movie. You just are like, nothing's going to come out as good.
I mean, what I like about Heavenly Creatures is what happened to them after they got out of jail. Like, in the story behind that, you find out that the condition that once they were released, they could never see each other.
Yeah,
they would know each other, and neither one ever got married either. They still have this love for each other, but they can't see each other, and they still have this love for each other that they can't actually experience.
Yeah.
It's kind of
and that's another.
Even though the movie doesn't give you what the future is. But the movie, once you know what happened, and then you go back and watch the movie, that's all still there. So that's it's a clever way of doing it, sort of thing. That and I mean, gave us Kate Winslet. Who would have thought?
Yeah. She's a pretty good actress, though.
I mean, I think another thing I like about Bad Taste, it does give me that Evil Dead. I mean, Evil Dead's another one of the original. It's one of those films where a bunch of friends got together and let's make a movie, and they shot it, weekends and stuff like this, and they gave us, a classic,
Yeah.
Total cult following for sure.
That still is reemerging in different ways, which is, again, this was, I don't think was ever intended to be a franchise at all. I think it was just an idea. Then it became another movie and another movie, and then it turned into a series, and now it's a game. I mean, it's just like
And there's probably another movie coming out now, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they're coming out with the game, which is, I think, the end of this year, Keith, I think, or mid-May. Yeah, it looks great, but it's, I
would love to see a interview where Kevin Smith interviews Peter Jackson, only because, going back to Lord of the Rings, there's this war between the Star Wars and the Lord of the Rings audiences, sort of thing. And Clark's too has one of the best arguments.
Yes,
about, you got these Star Wars people arguing with the Lord of the Rings, and they go,
that's right.
We love Lord of the Rings. We love Lord of the Rings. And the Star Wars people go, it's a movie about walking. Everyone walks, even the Rings walk.
I forgot about that.
You gotta love the fans. I'm telling you, they're like, I always say it's even the Star Wars against the Star Trek fans. It's like, oh my god, like the Trekkies will lose their shit whenever you try to come at them. Oh my god, it's amazing.
I was thinking about this too. This is not something I wrote in my notes, just something that hit me as we were speaking. We're talking about these really low budget films that exist because a group of friends had a like-minded idea and they got together and they made it happen. And the reason that maybe we don't get these films today is because the definition of traditional friendship has changed so much, especially since the invention of social media and the internet. Like friends, like my closest friends are people that I have never met face to face. There are people that exist in an online world. I don't have those friends anymore, like, you know, I did in childhood, high school, where, you know, hey, let's do something really dumb. Let's grab a camera and let's just go out and make this stupid shit.
Yeah.
You know, though that type of thing. And it has nothing to do with age. I'm sure there are some people out there who are in their mid 40s, like I am, that have dumb friends still to this day. I don't.
Yeah.
And most kids, especially generations who grew up in the social media world, they don't know their friends. They've had longer relationships with people online and in chat rooms and in online gaming like Grand Theft Auto and things like Call of Duty.
Actually, too.
Yes. But they don't know anything about their classmates.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also interesting. We take technology, I think, for granted too, because back when, you know, in the 80s, when a lot of it was emerging, to have a tape recorder to record, like me and my brothers were just stupid. We would sit in a room and be like, we're going to do a radio show. And we'd like tape record ourselves and like and it's like now, because everyone has a camera or everyone has like the technology, it's kind of like, it's like, oh, am I going to really do this? Am I going to use this versus when you had an opportunity to get that technology? I couldn't afford much, I know, growing up as a kid. So when my aunt got a camcorder, it was like, what?
Big
like, you're
deal,
gonna what?
yeah,
Like, that was like big. It was like, you gotta, you know, and she would record, you know, Christmas and things like that. And we would be like, can we make a movie, or can we, like, that'd be kind of cool. Like now I just think we all kind of in some ways do take, like you were saying, your stuff is all in the closet, right?
Yeah.
It's
totally.
sort of like we take that for granted. We're like, oh, well, I have it. I'll get to it, you know, and I'll use it whenever. When we were younger, it was like a big thing. It was like a big thing to have something like that, you know?
Well, then again, we didn't have all these channels and social media, Netflix and Amazon Prime. We had to find ways to do things and entertain ourselves. We had to be creative and imaginative. That is a problem, I think, these days, to some extent, sometimes too.
Well,
overload, total overload.
You know, that's what it does. You know?
The other way, I do kind of miss the early days when I was first making films at like the School of Visual Arts, where it was just, this is due next week, and I just grab my brother and two friends and be like, hey, listen, I need to shoot this by next week. Can we like just do it this weekend? And I kind of do miss that. I miss being able to just kind of do, because now everything, when you're doing things on a little bit more of a professional level, even slightly more, you want everything to be perfect, because now there's an expectation. Whereas 20 years ago, when I was a 21-year-old kid, there was no expectation of anything. Yeah. If it sucked, it sucked, and it didn't matter. Now, it's not as much fun anymore. And I think of Dave Camfield, who was the person who brought me onto this podcast. He is different than me in that he'll come up with something and he'll write it, and he doesn't care if he doesn't have a lot of money. He will find a way to get it done. I don't have that ability. Like, I'm sitting there thinking, how much is this going to cost? Oh, well, if I do this, I wouldn't be able to afford this. Meanwhile, Dave's just writing it, and he's just knocking it out, and he's making movies on like no money, getting distribution for them. Yeah. And it's phenomenal when you see people like that, because I think it's also too, you get concerned with like fan base, right? And like how people see what you're producing. And I think a lot of that gets into creators' minds of like, what am I going to do with this, right? And how am I going to make this and present it to the world? Whereas when we had no social and no one was responding, the only critics that you really were or concerned about were other directors, other producers, other creators, right? Now anyone and their brother can take what you've created and just dump all over it, you know? So that, I think their fear of toxic fans too are the ones that hinder us really from kind of exploring those aspects of just doing it, right? Like I one point I was telling a friend who was working on something, I was like, how are you going to make this? Because he had this clear direction. Everything goes, I'm going to make it every single second, every single minute, every single hour. Like I'm just going to take it a little bit at a time. If you think so far down and worry about everything else, it's just never going to get done. And that's how he always approached things. And it was, ambitious, but also he did it. Every day he just moved and did. And lo and behold, like when his film was done, I was like, I'm just really impressed, because
I would be like, I think I get caught up in all of the, craziness of like how,
That's the thing. It's like you have to have this really like narrow focus, and you need to just see what needs to be done. And that's something that I don't know that I'm able to do that anymore. It
would be cool if he did a documentary on how he made this film, because I think it would just be from a perspective of someone who is a creative person. You would be like, oh wow, how did you just like go about making this film? Because
I'm sure
you just woke up and you're like, we're gonna go out and shoot today. I had this idea,
I'm sure if you get the right DVD or the right Blu-ray, you'll be able to there's probably some audio commentary or something with Peter Jackson where he can tell you all that. Somebody recently, because I keep talking about moving back to LA when I have the money. And somebody pointed out, I was like, I've been hearing you say when I have the money for 6-7 years now. I was like, why don't you just get out there and figure it out? And then you could always come back if it doesn't work. And I'm like, there is a truth to that. There is, because if you wait forever for the right moment, that right moment might never come.
That's why people say, well, we can't afford to have kids. You're never going to have enough money to do everything you want to do. So, in essence, maybe try to make that dream happen. We know you can do it. So.
Well, another thing, you don't necessarily, if LA is not a reality or doesn't become a reality, LA, there are a lot of people making films who are not even in LA. We have a person who does our Dark Shadows, and Suffrage, and he features stuff out of Virginia, and he gets people like David Selby and all these actors to come in, and he's producing it all himself and writing all this stuff and stuff like this. So
I don't see why you'd have to be in
California. Think out of the box. I think the thing is, you have to make that first step, and if you believe in it, other people will start believing in it as well, and then more people will come on board.
Well, if you believe that you can do it, everybody else will start believing it.
But there's also the thing behind it is that, are you in it for the money, or are you in it for the art? So now, if you're a writer, as you know, is that if you're a writer and you're not a director, that basically you're just a prostitute or a whore for sale. Because you write it, and it's never going to be your image, and they're going to do whatever they want with it.
Yeah.
If you're good with that, that's fine. If you're not good with that, then you're going to have to learn how to use the camera and get more involved on that side of things.
And I had that.
That's the problem with script writing.
I had to have that conversation with a friend of mine recently who is in LA, and he's had a passion project he's worked on for years, and it's amazing how I've seen him grow in that project, and now he's at that point of pitching it and getting it out there. And I said, just understand that everything that you worked on, you can't be upset that they take that and they're just hack the hell out of it, right? And change so much about it. Because ultimately they want it to be a certain way. So they might like the general concept of what you're doing, but they're going to take that thing and just hack it apart. And you just have to be okay with that. So if it is like he said about the money, and you just want to sell it and you just don't care, then do it, right? And you get some sort of notoriety to it. But like when it comes to like if it's a passion project, just do it. Because he produced like a kid's book. Oh my God. I mean, I was just shocked by his work and how he was able to do that, but he's got stars in his eyes. And I said, be careful with that, because it's just dangerous when you want to create something, because, people are going to dim that light, because they're going to be like, nope, that's not the way I want it. I want it this way. We paid for this. Nope. And they make your life a living hell, and versus you losing that creative edge that you want, Yeah.
Because the next thing you know, Palpatine returned somehow. We don't know how, but he did.
He was cloned. What are you talking about? He's just always been in a test tube somewhere.
He went inside the cupboard. He was in the cupboard.
Well, I was going to say, one of my personal... I worked on Torchwood for an episode, and that's just to say I didn't get on with the director or the producer. But at the end of the day, I got paid for my work. But because we didn't get on, he took my name off everything.
Oh man!
Well, I got the money and I don't care. And then every time, and I do get residuals from it, so I don't care. But the thing is, and then you have to be careful, because when stuff like that happens, you can't say anything.
Right?
Yeah, you can't. Or you can go to litigation forever, and they have the money to afford litigation. You don't.
Right?
You're just kind of like, oh, okay,
Yeah, so that's why when
there
I
is
work
no
with-
perfection, only perfect intent.
I put it through my company, and then you get
I'm just total this fucking
work that way. So,
I also love the idea too that we've all watched things and we're like, how the hell did this get created? And you're like, it got created. The person created it, and they figured out a way, and it's out there. So you kind of have to have that mindset too. Like, look, everyone has a vision, and for that person, it was a passion project, and at the end, they might not have even gotten the results they wanted, but hey, they did it, and they got it out there, right? And they created, Brazilla, or
Brazilla.
whatever. It's like they created what they created. And they stuck with it because they
there's
saw
a
it.
movie out there now, so I mean, someone got money to make that. So
yeah.
I would say to anyone out there who's like young and starting out, and that, I would say just experiment as much as possible. Like, try a 120 millimeter film, or try 35 mil. Even go on eBay and get like an old fashioned Louboutin Russian camera with a plastic lens. Just play around, and then you can always revert back to it in the future and use it as a retrospective, and it might even help you or guide you, in what you're doing. Because I remember I met this lady called Julie Scott. I think it was 2012, and she just came into the bookshop that I was working in, and we got chatting, and she wrote and sang a song called San Salvador, which was like a Euro pop song. And then I said, oh, why don't we do a music video? So basically what I did, I filmed a lava lamp reflecting into a bath. Okay. And then they used it for the music video for Head Candy. So it's really surreal, and you just see like blobbing things, but something as simple as that. But it's all about experimenting and mucking around and enjoying.
Every lens has a lesson, right? So you just have to experiment.
And just how much are you paying me? I don't care what you want.
Who was it we were talking to that said you have to live it, breathe it, eat it, sleep? Who were we talking to, Joe?
With Sam Irwin, I think.
Yeah, it was Sam Irwin. Yeah.
And he's if you look at what he's doing, he's constantly working on something.
He's in Florida right now doing something. He's having the time of his life.
He's at Pensacon.
Yeah.
But when you look at him, he's one of those. He's a journeyman director. He's directing like 5 movies a year. They're all movies made for Lifetime. But you know what? The guy's constantly working.
Yeah.
He's doing what he loves to do.
I mean, look at some of these people, that make films. I mean, I sit there, and they are. I mean, Uninvited that we covered last month. I mean, obviously that was a labor of love about a mutant cat. But,
right.
The film that we're covering next month, Basket Case, another labor of love sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one.
Basket Case. Every pubescent boy out there has watched Basket Case, at least in the 80s.
I haven't watched it yet, but I'm definitely a Basket Case.
I'm saying that things find their audience in due course. They might be panned, and people shake their head that, but they do find their audience. You never know.
I also say it's just like being different, because it's easy to kind of like. I think that's why for a while I started to study like sci-fi, because it was like the what if this and it challenged me to not do the atypical, this story, that, well, what if it was this and what if it was that, and I think it's, it's a good way to kind of like mindset wise, and it's hard to be different, right? Because there's so much that's like out there that you're like, I thought it was an amazing idea, and then it's like, oh wait, there's a movie that just came out about, and you're like, like really?
When we went to see the new Scream, my roommate and I went to see it a couple weeks ago when it first came out, and we sat there in the theater, and thematically, a lot of the stuff that you were saying you liked about it. The stuff about, toxic fandom and all that stuff. We fucking just finished a screenplay that was about a toxic fan who starts stalking his favorite actress. And a lot of the points they were making in the new Scream were the points we were making. And I'm like, well...
Well, and that's what I mean. Is like if you're not quick enough, you kind of I kind of laugh because I've had so many different like ideas and bubbles, and at one point my friend's like, oh, that's a great idea. You should do it. And I'm like, yeah, there's someone already, this person did. And he was like, oh, and then I would say, yeah. And then I had this other, you should do it. I'm like, let me guess, someone already did. I'm like, yes, someone already did.
I think you also remember that when it comes to ideas that you have, every idea that you've had has been done before anyway.
It's true.
I mean, what you just said about Scream. I mean, I'm sorry, but in the 80s, there was a film called The Fam with Michael Biehn and Lauren Bacall, which is not a film. Nothing there.
Well,
that, in the 50s, you had All About Eve, which is about a fan stalking Margot Channing and becoming her.
That's right. Well, they were saying that even all of most films in the beginning that are replicants of films were actually from like Shakespeare and other great theater, right? And so it just is a replicative of that story, whether it's Hamlet or whether it's Cyrano or whether it's like everything replicates. So if you look at it close enough, you're like, oh, that's a little bit, that's, and you kind of look at those old stories, it just gets retold and it gets reimagined.
We reviewed that film, Killer Party, that reminded me of Scream 2 so much.
Well, how about earlier today, the first film we talked about today, Killer Klowns from Outer Space, is Invasion of the Body Snatchers in a way.
Yeah, it is. Pods,
though I don't know if anything
and hell, so was Invaders from Mars.
I don't know anything could replicate this last film that we saw, because I mean, quite literally, I don't think of anything that, I mean, and even there's influence of like Shaun of the Dead, obviously, and things like that where it is, but like
Living Dead.
Yeah. Night of the Living Dead. Yeah.
Dawn of the Dead. There's a lot of decapitations and stuff like this. It's just they put aliens and we send it kind of it's like mishmash sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, everything you have has been done somewhere. Halloween, Mario Bava, these Giallo films.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where it goes, this is such an original film. Well, Halloween's not really an original film. It's about a killer in town that's stalking everyone. And that's actually been done back in the 60s in Italian horror.
Yeah.
Dario Argento's Giallo film sort of thing. So, I mean, everything has its. Friday the 13th. I mean, if you look at Friday the 13th, most of the murders come off of a Giallo film by Bob.
Yeah.
Oh my God, murders I've seen before. And this film was like that years before.
Right.
There's the Seventh Seal by Ingmar Bergman, Again, it could be like Scream, because it's like death is stalking him and he plays chess to win more time or to give the innocents a chance to get away, So again, nothing's new. And you go back to Hamlet, absolutely the same thing, Yeah.
I mean, that could also be like What Dreams May Come too, right?
What Dreams May Come, exactly.
But even one of my last releases as a novella, which it was part splatterpunk novel, part Western, and you're like, God, that sounds really original. And people are like, wow, I've never heard of that before. But the entire narration for it was Catcher in the Rye. I read Catcher in the Rye, and I followed J.D. Salinger's narration style for that book. I mean, so we do copy. Every single artist copies.
Yeah. I mean, that's how you tell a good story, though. Too, you have inspiration from these strong characters that come out, and you look at like a lot of like the Jane Austens and those types of stories. Like those characters were different love stories, right? They weren't the same type of damsel in distress. It was characters that stood out and on their own, and that inspired other. I think like Final Girls for me, like Final Girls came from a concept of a strong woman that didn't need a man. Sense and Sensibility and like those types of things. Like it,
exactly.
Spawned those types of Final Girls.
Imitation is the most sincerest form of flattery.
Yeah.
Another thing you have to remember is that we now live with a generation that doesn't have any memory of anything 5 years before it.
True.
Because of the way things are nowadays. So I mean, which is quite good due to Netflix and stuff like that. They don't have any. I mean, you could just remake a film from 10 years ago and make the new generation would know nothing about it.
Yeah, or the new generation is like, oh yeah, I love that old show, whatever, and you're like, that was like 5 years ago. That wasn't that old ago. That wasn't that long ago.
Things are starting to go a little faster. Year
We're gonna have
wise.
a Tobey Maguire, then did what was it like 8 years later with Andrew Garfield had to tell the story again because the audiences couldn't remember the Tobey Maguire storyline for Spider-Man.
Yeah. I also just don't think
my mom
stories.
did a classic in the cinema when the Spider-Man came through, and she said, "Who's that?"
Oh,
It's really funny. Me and my
I
mom
just
couldn't
feel like
stop
a lot-
laughing. It's so funny.
I feel like a lot of movies that come out now are more disposable, though. Like it just feels like if they don't feel like they're film, they feel like they're content.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would rather have something that is disposable than something that just keeps going and like shows that feel that we need to bring everyone back together again, and we're gonna see what they are as adults, and then soon we're gonna see them in the geriatric, ward. Like, what the hell? Like,
Just
I
say
don't need to see the
Ghostbusters.
longevity of their entire
Just
life.
say it. Just say Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. But it's like you just don't like. Sometimes it's
Bill
like
Murray,
it's
my
good
legend.
to know what the story is.
I don't necessarily mean disposable in that way, like it doesn't have any sequels. I mean disposable and like it doesn't matter anymore. Like you leave the theater and you fucking forgot what you saw now.
Yeah. I mean, every story should have a lesson. Yeah. I mean, if it doesn't have any type of learning or lesson, then yeah, it's a shitty story.
Like
but you should walk away with some sort of like, oh, yeah,
Something- take something from it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Trying to think of a movie I've seen lately that I've taken something from.
Just made me think about the word lesson. It's like lesson, right? But it's almost sometimes lessens your imagination.
Yeah.
I mean, I just mentioned the new Ghostbusters. The biggest issue was there was no narrative conflict throughout the whole thing.
No,
just everything came and happened and went, and that's it.
You're right. You're 100%.
I don't recall. I don't recall the last film I saw where when it was over, I just okay, yes, I do. Did and people shit on this movie so bad. James Wan film. Did anybody else like Malignant?
I liked it.
Oh yeah,
I liked it.
Yeah. We reviewed it, and it was. I mean, it was unsettling. It did stick with me for a while, but that's the other thing that's important. Like, if it sits with me for a while, I'm like, what am I thinking about this? Now it's making me think too much about this because what is happening?
The first two acts, I'm like, okay, I've seen all this before. I'm bored out of my mind.
I just
but
didn't
then
like the acting in it. That was my biggest problem.
Act. Just I had to pause it and I had to back it up. And I'm like, okay, I got to start this sequence again. What the fuck did I just watch?
Right.
And that has to be like one of the last films and one of the first ones in a very long time where while the credits were rolling, I was just sitting there, just staring blankly at the screen, just trying to process what I had just seen. But it doesn't happen often anymore.
A lot of people did shit all over that movie and all the forums and stuff. It just like, yeah.
The fact that it got everybody talking is immediately a hint that it was going in the right direction, whether they loved it or hated it. Like, it got a reaction.
Yeah,
like every other movie just comes and goes, and it's just like, okay, blah. Yeah, it came, it went. I didn't give a shit. But yeah, that got everybody was talking about Malignant, whether you loved it or hated it, for like a month, 2 months afterwards, and they're still talking about it now.
There's guilty. There's a movie that's coming out too that to me it feels very different. It's Alice that's coming out. It's based on a true story, which I had no clue that this even happened, but it was a person who freed herself and she was like on a plantation as a slave, but in the 1970s. And so she gets free from the plantation. Okay, and this guy is like, where are you from? Because she's in the plantation, closes everything. And he introduces her to the 70s and like, where have you been? You've been like in a bubble. And she makes a decision to go back to free other slaves. And so like that concept is like, whoa, I want to see this, but I love that someone took, I guess this was a true story to some degree. And now I'm curious about that. I'm like, what way, huh? Like, how the hell did that happen? But that movie looks great. Alice.
So talking about going back to bad taste, I'm going to attend it.
That tangent, that wasn't my fault this time.
No.
Sorry.
I'm going to blame John because he's only here one episode of.
Oh, thanks. Thank you very much.
So let's score bad taste out of 5. Let's start off with Vicky. What do you give this out of 5?
Well, the first 10, 15 minutes, I was really struggling because I was going, I think I texted you and Joe like I always do. It's just like, who the hell suggested this movie? So if you get really stoned, it makes a lot of sense to watch. So eat lots of edibles. And then you will like this movie. Now, it made it a lot more interesting. It really did. It wasn't, but once I got into it, it wasn't that bad, though. Because, I mean, I just, you have to give things time. So I would actually give it a 4.
Okay.
So I would watch it again now that I know what I was missing.
And what about yourself, Craig?
I'll give it 4 because I think the story was really good. I really enjoyed the story.
It's quite original.
It's quite unique.
Yeah, that's it.
About the harvesting and that, it was quite good.
Yeah,
very gory.
Immersion
Very
fast
gory.
food
Don't eat
thing.
your
I mean,
dinner
come
when
on,
Don't eat your dinner while watching this, though.
No.
Except for the vomit part. That really disturbs me.
A human give birth to an alien and vice or something like that. It's a bit fucked up, but yeah.
The green gruel could have. No,
Yeah, it actually reminded me of my
If you
grandmother.
like Call the Midwife, you'll like this.
Salad with cottage cheese. What about yourself, Steve? What are your thoughts? What do you score it?
Sorry.
What are you scoring bad? What do you?
Oh, sorry. I'll give it 4. Taking my pants off over my head out of 5.
And yourself, Joe?
4 Derricks. Is it?
4 Derricks.
Without this, you don't have. It's a domino effect. The film itself is fine, but without it, you don't get Meet the Feebles, Dead Alive, Heavenly Creatures, and eventually Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
this is the movie. Without this movie, you're missing so much.
Every time I hear Meet the Feebles, I just have this vision of the cow Muppet with her nipples out, all in S&M's.
Yeah, now I have to see this movie. I had never seen this movie.
John, you've got to check it out, man.
Yeah,
it's a good film.
And the baby gets a disease.
It's gone forever.
What about yourself, John? What's your thoughts?
I give it 4 squirts. It starts off a little slow and then as it starts to move along, you like, I think what was getting me into it was just the absurdity of like the shooting and the just Derek taking control and being like Rambo, like he just lost it. Like that pulled me into it and then it just kept me there. So after Derek, I think is what,
And what about yourself, Chad? What's your scoring?
Definitely 4 out of 5 denim-clad aliens. It's just as an indie artist, struggling indie artist. This is just it's that push to keep going. To anybody out there that wants to be a creator, it is that push to keep going, because what you wake up as today influences and affects what you will wake up as 10 years from now. And Peter Jackson is living proof that it can be done. What the critics will say is stupid and mindless today could be Oscar worthy down the road.
Yeah, good point.
I'm going to give it 4 stars because I love these kind of independent films, especially when it comes from another country, which I love the humor and I just feel I love it when you can watch something and you know that there's like this passion of love and these people are together and they're really enjoying themselves. I said before, you kind of get it with Evil Dead, you get it with this, and there's so many. I even love like Basket Case and John Waters films because of that ability that you have all these, it's Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney. Let's make a movie in the barn sort of situation. And I love that, and I like the way that. And yes, and I will go along with what everyone else says. It's interesting to see the start of someone who's going to make it huge as well, and it's quite interesting because it's someone who makes it huge, but didn't actually get pigeonholed to make it huge either. So that's got a lesson in its own right, sort of thing. Well, that brings us to the end of the Liquor License podcast. Our next 2 for 1 will be 2 films. One is the German film Necromantic, which is about having sex with corpses, and we'll be covering Basket Case, another film dealing with the bizarre and independent way of making films.
Everything you need to know about sex you will find in these 2 films.
That's right. And we are available for children's parties.
Sounds like a stiff one.
And our next book to screen will be Let the Right One In, the Swedish film by John Massari, Lindqvist. And we'll be covering the Swedish film of the same name as well. And our remake will be Imitation of Life from 1934 and the 1959 remake. And of course, our remake of next month will be The Shining, the original, and The Shining miniseries, which is the Stephen King version which he prefers. And of course, we'll be covering Dark Shadows, so make sure you stay tuned for those. So it's good night for myself, and good night, Craig.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, David.
Good night, everyone.
Night, Joe.
Good night, everyone.
Good night,
Good night, John boy.
Good night. Sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite.
Good night, Vicky.
Good night, y'all.
And before we say goodnight to you, Chaz, is there anything you want our viewers to know or where they can find you?
Yes, they can find me at cderekmiller.com or on social media at Howl Growl Snarl. Got a lot of different short story anthologies coming out this year, as well as a 3rd season of the American Justice podcast, where we focus on wrongfully accused criminals.
And good night for myself, and we'll see you next week for Make We Make with Imitation of Life from 1934 and 1959. Good night.